Hello and good morning to all joining us via Zoom and our Facebook live stream. Welcome to the Center for Enlightenment's exploration of the spiritual teachings, Jewels from Jane Elizabeth. Each Sunday will be a free-flowing adventure with teachings by Jane Elizabeth Hart, facilitated by certified Center for Enlightenment teachers. We will be working from the self-study lessons found on our website at cfenlightenment.org, and we continue with the self-study lesson titled Observe Yourself. Today's topic is observing your emotions. Greg Barrett will be the facilitator for this lesson. Greg is a certified teacher for the Center for Enlightenment and longtime student of Jane Hart, studying with her for over 30 years. Jane is the author of Spiritual Power Tools, Support for Your Soul, master teacher and founder of the Center for Enlightenment. Today's course will be live streamed via Facebook. A recording will be sent out with the weekly reflections so you can access it anytime. For those new to this format, your chat icon is located at the bottom of your screen. Just click to view. If you have any technical questions, please reach out to the host or co-host via the chat. In addition to the Sunday courses, there will be a question and answer discussion on Thursday at 7 p.m. Eastern. A link for these sessions will also be posted in the chat room. If you're in need of prayer support, please contact us at cfenlightenment.org or just type centerforenlightenment.com. We are active on Facebook and Twitter. Come check us out, share your thoughts, reflections, and experiences. It would also be a great support to like the postings that resonate with you. We also invite you to visit our website at cfenlightenment.org. There you will find additional self-study lessons, talks, videos, or you can search for specific topics to support your expansion in consciousness. So let's just sit back, let's take a deep breath as we move into the silence and begin today's journey with the prescription for spiritual alignment.
Hello and welcome. And as we move into this exploration of our emotional states and how we can observe them and so find healing, let's move into the prescription for spiritual alignment and bring in that conscious energy that supports our souls. We are aligned with the presence of God within. We are protected by God's love, wisdom, knowledge, and grace. The God consciousness within helps us discover more about who we are. Thank you, God, for the gift of spiritual intuition. Thank you, God, for aligning our conscious, subconscious, and superconscious mind. And we feel this energy and we feel this vibration supporting our healing. Thank you, God. Amen. Well, you've been on an exploration the last 3 weeks of being in your observer self. And as you've explored your observer self, you found that you had a certain amount of dominion, certain amount of power to observe and even adjust and change your mental states, your states of thinking. Well, today we're going to talk about moving this even deeper. We're going to talk about how becoming the active observer of our emotional states can help us to stay out of the drama of our lives. And just reflect for a moment, what kind of emotions could this help you with? What are the emotions that come up during the day? Fear? What are they going to think of me? Anger? How dare they do that kind of thing? Sadness? This always happens to me. These are the kinds of emotions that come up. And behind all the emotions, there's a thought or a belief. And just as I said a moment ago, maybe we're afraid. And the reason why is because there's a belief that somebody is threatening us or that we're going to make a mistake somewhere. Maybe we're having an emotion of sadness, and it could be because we see ourselves as victims or somehow getting the short end of things. We might see ourselves with our anger as feeling like we've got to go out and do battle with people and get into tussles and fights with people. So behind all of these emotions, and they tend to be in three categories: fear, sadness, and anger, there are beliefs and there are patterns of thinking that we can access through our emotional states. Now, as you've observed yourself, you've noticed these emotional states come up, and you've also seen some of these old beliefs that no longer are relevant to you, that no longer serve you. Perhaps you had an experience in childhood where it was maybe necessary to have certain beliefs and emotions in order to navigate those events. Maybe you went through a breakup in a relationship, or you had a boss that was very difficult, or something like that. And now these emotions that come up no longer serve you. The truth is a lot of these emotions are sourced, the great majority are actually sourced in past life experiences, which you might not have any awareness of. So the important thing is that you can feel what you're feeling and deal with the beliefs and the patterns that are there, even if you don't remember what the source may be consciously. And as you look at yourself more and more each day, the observer self is giving you the opportunity to get into greater and greater touch with those subconscious aspects of your being that are held within the iceberg of your soul. Now, we've talked many times about this spiritual iceberg, and Jane, in the book Spiritual Power Tools, on page 28, has a wonderful illustration of the iceberg, showing that above the surface, this is all we're aware of, but it's only 1/10. Beneath the surface, all of this is made out of emotional stuff that's held together, or that's holding together all of the patterns of thinking and belief that are stuck in the subconscious mind. And so by allowing yourself to be aware of what this emotion is as a chunk of the ice comes to the surface, and you don't necessarily have to know all the ins and outs of the beliefs and the patterns and the sources of all these feelings, but just being aware of the feeling itself can begin this powerful process of healing. When they come all at once, and sometimes we have these experiences where a big chunk of ice comes up, or a lot of chunks of ice come up from our subconscious mind, Jane calls it tipping over. And you've probably heard this term before. My life's just tipped over. It's all, upside down. I remember when I was a kid, during lunchtime, when we couldn't go to the outside. We didn't have a cafeteria, so we ate outside, and it was a rainy day. We had to go inside and stay in the classroom with our little bag lunches. And the teacher would, after we finished our lunches, would lead us in games. And one of them was called Fruit Basket Upset. And without going into too much detail, you would pick a fruit that you were, and she would mention the fruit, and anybody with that name, it was basically musical chairs, would run around, and whoever didn't find their seat would be it the next time, and they would call out our fruit, and then the same thing would happen. But every so often somebody could say fruit basket upset, and everything went flying because everybody could run around the room. And it was kind of like musical chairs, but with a lot more chaos. But fruit basket upset is really how it feels sometimes when your world tips over. And I've heard Jane talk about this so many times. She said, I can't tell you the number of times my world has tipped over. But each time, she said, it's made her stronger and wiser and more resilient. And this time of life that is so fraught and so frothy and so filled with what looks like emotional chaos will actually, when it settles down, reconfigure itself, just like in Fruit Basket Upset. You're reconfigured and you find yourself becoming more capable, more determined. But you've got to be willing to embrace these times of life that seem chaotic. You've got to be willing to move out of what Jane calls a comfort zone. Now, what is a comfort zone? A comfort zone is the time in your life when you just want to keep everything the same, when you just want to feel comfortable at all costs. Heaven help us, we don't want to grow when we're in a comfort zone. And instead, we've got to be willing to move out of our comfort zones. When these times in life that seem like they're fruit basket upset, where they're just emotional chaos, you've got to be willing to let it go. What might you gain from letting go of that addiction to being comfortable all the time, and instead see every day as a great adventure and an opportunity to embrace all the aspects of your being and even own those parts of yourself where you feel very uncomfortable and even out of control? Because the times in life when you feel out of control, where everything seems to be upset, those are the times when you can have the greatest and deepest growth. When you're going through a time like that, the first thing, at least I know for myself, the first thing that I do is I needlessly defend myself. I try to make myself right so I can stay stuck. It's one way of keeping myself comfortable. And so I use my analytical mind to figure out ways to say to myself, well, if only this and only that, and I'm going to say this, and if this person could understand that, that kind of defensiveness and self-righteousness gets in the way of your greatest opportunities of spiritual growth. These are the two big enemies, I guess you'd call them, of your spiritual growth: defensiveness and self-righteousness. And these experiences in life that are coming up in order to heal you, because they're in your subconscious mind and have been there for a long, long time, when they come up, that's an opportunity to embrace all of yourself and to move out of your comfort zone and to be willing to let go of defensiveness, to let go of self-righteousness. But first, you've got to be willing to look at what's triggering you. Now, in the modern world, there's people who talk about trigger alerts. And sometimes if I'm watching a video or I'm listening to something, they'll say, now, this is the trigger alert. But sometimes we find ourselves being run by the triggers in our lives, where we try to protect ourselves with our defensiveness or our self-righteousness from being triggered by things. And instead of allowing ourselves to be run by the triggers of our lives, we can let them go and allow them to melt in the sea of the infinite self that we are. These chunks of ice have come up to heal us. One of the things that Jane suggests that you do is give that part of yourself a name. The scared little girl. She calls one the angry adolescent. Miss Jane, little Brian or little Joe, my not okay self, my scared little boy, my my angry parent in myself that wants to be tough on myself and everybody else. And imagine that you get up on a ladder and you look down into your emotional body and you can see these aspects of yourself. Give them names. Become aware of what's really running you. And instead of letting yourself defend or protect yourself and make yourself self-righteous and right about all these triggers, let them come up. Just welcome them. Open your heart and just let all of these things come up so that you can embrace them, so that you can allow yourself to use every day of your life as the opportunity that it is. Every day of your life is an opportunity to heal you. And instead of seeing that angry person at the gas station or that person that said the thing that you didn't like as, oh my gosh, I'm being triggered, it ruined my day. Instead, see it, Jane calls it a Christmas present. See it as a Christmas present. Unwrap it. See what's there. See what the gift is within it. And the gift in every situation in your life that seems to be unpleasant, or you want to defend yourself or protect yourself, make yourself right, the gift is always spiritual healing. emotional healing, attitudinal healing in your mental states, but ultimately your spiritual healing. So as you look down into your emotional body, who do you see there? What do you see there? What names can you give these subpersonalities, these parts of yourself that tend to run you? Well, they can't talk to me that way. Well, that's that scared little boy who's afraid of being hurt. Well, you know, I'm going to give them a piece of my mind. Well, that's the angry parent. And sometimes by just giving a name to those false identities, those chunks of ice in our subconscious minds, we rob them of the power that they seem to have to ruin our days and run our lives. This is where we become truly empowered. This is where we truly become in charge of our lives and our emotions. And in the video at the end of this lesson, Jane is going to talk about how to get in touch with and ultimately how to get in charge of your emotions. Each of these little emotional lower states has given you trouble in the past. And one of the ways that you can dismantle these emotional states is to use your journaling. Write down a free flowing exploration of whatever you're feeling and don't censor yourself. Write down all the 4-letter words and all the irrational, immature, and the parts of yourself that you really don't want to see, those yucky parts that you're embarrassed by and you try to defend yourself from or protect yourself from. Write them down, get them out, and allow them to breathe and allow yourself to breathe. And by doing so, you're dismantling the chunks of ice in your iceberg. You're also dismantling your subconscious emotional states, your emotional body. So this is a better way of dealing with your emotional problems in the future. This journaling practice, which I know the reason why I know that I don't want to journal sometimes is that I don't want to get in touch with these things. But if you embrace them and even challenge yourself, see it as an adventure, see it as an opportunity for growth, what I find is once I get the ball rolling and once I get the words flowing onto paper, they come out and I'm able to see things. And I get Christmas gifts as I unwrap my emotional states. This requires us to make a commitment to become the active observer, to exercise our observer selves. And in this journey of activating our observer self, one of the most powerful tools that we can use to open up the channel of intuition, to become clearer and more aware, is meditation. As you do this work, it really is important to spend at least a few minutes every day in the silence, in the quiet, in your heart, meditating and opening the door for spiritual understanding, opening the door for spiritual growth. This clears out that channel between your conscious mind and your subconscious mind. This is using your superconscious mind, your spiritual self, to open up the door so that you can really see what's there. Now, as you've been observing your mind, you've probably noticed that you go back and forth between opposites, happy and sad, pleased and angry, love and hate, all the different emotions that come up. And the way to move out of the yo-yos, Jane calls it, between these different positive and negative emotional states, these opposites, is to observe those emotional states and become aware of them. How often during the day are you really aware of what you're feeling, of what's really generating and what's really humming in the background noise of your subconscious mind? Every time you hit a stoplight or every time there's a pause and you're quiet, just ask, what am I feeling right now? Your emotions are the gateway to your mind. Your emotions are the gateway to the patterns of belief that are held in your subconscious mind, those emotional iceberg chunks. And always start your observation of self by asking yourself, what am I feeling right now? In the Spiritual Power Tool book, in the chapter on journaling, the first of the 5 journaling questions, which I use every day, the first one is, what am I feeling right now? And I just write down one word, maybe a phrase at the most. I found that I can really identify what I'm feeling as a form of fear or sadness or anger, even if I might call it anxiety or grief or resentment. These are forms of fear and sadness and anger. And what I find is by identifying my emotions, that's the first step in drilling down deep into my subconscious mind and discovering what's really there. That's the adventure of living on planet Earth in the 3rd dimension. It gives us the opportunity to heal and to get to know our whole self and to embrace every aspect of our beingness. And in this video, Jane talks about this as the adventure of moving from the 3rd dimension into the 4th dimension. Now, what do we mean by that? Moving from the 3rd into the 4th dimension. Well, the 3rd dimension is the realm of the ego. The 3rd dimension is the realm of the lower self. And it is made up of mind stuff and emotions. But your 4th dimensional self is the realm of the soul, of your infinite self. And in the book Spiritual Power Tools, and she's going to have a chart in this video, you can find it in the book. There's a chapter on moving from the 3rd to the 4th dimension, and it talks about the different qualities that you experience as you're in the 3rd dimension or the 4th dimensional consciousness. And you can even go through these different pairs of understandings of 3rd dimension and 4th dimensional consciousness and ask yourself, where am I at right now? Where am I at today? How much progress have I made in this particular aspect of my consciousness? So how can you move into the 4th dimensional consciousness, into the soul consciousness, your higher self? I mean, I've had people say to me, well, just rise above it. I remember going through a really tough time about, 40 years ago. And I had somebody say, you just need to rise above it. I didn't know how to rise above it. And what I realize now is that the best way for me to rise above it would have been for me to write it down, to journal about it, and to let these feelings that I was trying to stuff into my subconscious mind, to let them out. You see, letting these subconscious chunks come up and giving yourself some breathing space allows you to rise in your consciousness. You've had a lot of practice the last few weeks using your observer self. But now you're going to take the next step in moving forward in your consciousness by using your emotions to access what's going on inside of you. And you're going to have greater control, not rigid control, but fluid and flowing control over your emotions. Jane asks, how can you get free of the magnetic and energetic pull of these emotions that run you? How do you get from your emotions running you, and we've all had that experience, into taking charge of your emotions and using them to heal your soul? Well, it isn't easy at first, but just becoming aware of what your emotions are creates a little gap in your perception between yourself and what you're perceiving. It's as if you're standing back as the director of the play and watching your ego act out these different things. And your emotional awareness, becoming aware of what you're feeling, is a way to create a little bit of distance, a little bit of a gap in your process that makes all the difference in the world. It gives you greater objectivity. It gives you a higher and a broader perspective. And these emotions, which include emotions tied to jealousy and emotions tied to love, emotions tied to hate, all of your judgments are backed up by emotions. As you become aware of your emotions, you find yourself becoming aware of the judgments that are running you. Getting in charge of your emotions allows you to dismantle those judgments, those false beliefs, those patterns of thinking. And these feelings come from those buried parts of yourself that are, the more and more you grow spiritually, they seek to come forward in order to find an equilibrium in your soul and to find greater healing. The first step I always take is to go to the 5 journaling questions in the Spiritual Power Tools book in the journaling chapter. And these questions are, what am I feeling? What's going on that's causing me to feel that way? How is this a repeating pattern in my life? What is my soul showing me right now? And if my soul were in charge, not my ego, how would I handle it differently? And by just answering those questions, and if you don't have a copy of Spiritual Power Tools, you can go to the website, centerforenlightenment.com, and download it for free. And just scroll through, find those 5 questions, print them out, and have them right there next to your journal so that you can get in touch with what's really going on in your subconscious mind. You can find out earlier similar situations in your life that seem to be running you. Where did this feeling start? Where did the belief behind that feeling start? Purging yourself of this emotional garbage in your subconscious mind is the process of using your observer self to heal your soul. These emotions are packed into thought forms, and these thought forms are thought patterns that are clothed with emotional energy that kind of hold them together like glue. And these thought forms are both positive and negative. Even the positive emotions can keep you trapped in old patterns of thinking, old patterns of longing, or old patterns of attachment or yearning. One of the most powerful tools that you can use in this understanding is called the spiritual thermometer. And it's found in the Spiritual Power Tools. And as you ask yourself, where am I emotionally right now? On my spiritual thermometer gauge, am I at a 2 or a 3, below a 5 in my ego? Or am I at a 7 or an 8 in a higher state? But I still could move up the spiritual thermometer. You can measure where you are emotionally during the day and become aware of what you're truly experiencing. And being above a 5 isn't just being in your positive emotions, but it's being in charge of whatever emotions you're having. You can be above a 5 and be aware of your negative emotions. It isn't that every time you feel sadness or anger or fear, you're below a 5 necessarily, if you are aware of it, if you're not letting it run you. And this tool, this spiritual thermometer, can help you to measure where you are in consciousness. And it also can keep you out of a lot of trouble because you don't want to make a decision in your life when you're below a 5 on the spiritual thermometer. You can let these things go then. If you find yourself below a 5, ask yourself, what can I do? Take a deep breath. Allow yourself to become aware. And then journal. Journal what's going on. And use your meditation. Sit with your meditation and breathe and imagine your spiritual thermometer lifting up above a 5 to whatever level that you feel that you can be at. This is called gaining emotional freedom, not being run by your emotions anymore. Jane said, whatever's going on with you, it's not worth fighting about, because ultimately your life is not about all those different experiences and events in your life. It's about moving out of the 3rd dimension and into the fourth dimensional consciousness. And this movement from the third to the fourth dimension is usually best gauged by becoming aware of your emotional states and gaining emotional freedom. And when you move from the lower states of the spiritual thermometer to the higher states in your soul, this movement creates a great lifting of a burden from your soul. We have no idea how much energy we waste on useless, unnecessary emotional baggage and suffering that drains us of our vitality, that blocks our intuition, that blocks our consciousness, and stifles our creativity. We find ourselves becoming self-righteous or defensive, finding ourselves becoming rigid and unable to think or move, but gaining emotional charge over your life gives you greater flexibility, greater freedom. And then you don't get triggered anymore. The analogy has been used so many times of these triggers in life are like Velcro, and things just get stuck to us. But we can get rid of the Velcro, peel it off, and replace it with Teflon by becoming aware of what these emotional states are, what beliefs are behind those emotional states. And so journal them out and let them go. This is a powerful process of healing. And by doing this, you're going to find greater freedom. You're going to find that you look at your emotions differently. You don't see yourself as victimized by them. Oh my gosh, I'm in a terrible emotional state right now. But instead say, okay, this may be painful right now. I'll be real about it. But it's an opportunity for my spiritual growth. You're going to use your emotions to access your thoughts and your feelings. And so become aware of the patterns of thinking and the feelings that are behind, that are rising from those patterns of thinking that you have stored within your subconscious mind. It's frequently said you are never upset for the reason you think you are. There's always something that's going on that is deeper in your consciousness, and you can become aware of it. You can become aware of these hidden parts of your emotional iceberg. And as you become aware of these emotional states, write them down, and then write down where they come from using the journaling questions. Follow the clues, follow the breadcrumbs, follow the trail of your emotions as you write them down and chip away at those blocks in your subconscious mind. Eventually, what this leads you to is greater and greater detachment from your emotional body. That doesn't mean you don't have emotions. It doesn't mean you don't have problems, but they aren't running you anymore. This doesn't mean detachment does not mean you become apathetic or that you don't care anymore. It just means you are not personally in that. You are not personally attached to that. And you find yourself able to move with flexibility through every circumstance in your life. And as you do your journaling, the 5 journaling questions, sometimes you're going to hit some really big chunks of ice. And that's when you bring out the 7 steps for successful life transitions, which are also found on the website at centerforenlightenment.com. And you can use the journaling questions for the 7 steps to really ferret out those deeper emotional states that have their roots in past, earlier, similar situations in this lifetime, or even the energy from another lifetime, whether or not you're consciously aware of it. And when you do this 7-step work, this journaling work, what you find is that you gain greater detachment, which isn't not caring, but it is the ability to enjoy the people you're with and the things that you experience without attachment, to let them go and set yourself free so that you can flow into them and you can flow out of them at will. So as we watch this video together, I'm just going to ask you to be aware as you're watching the video of what emotions you're feeling right now. And just let yourself become aware of the clues that your emotions are giving you about the deeper states. Let's watch this video together.
Well, hi, I'm back again. And I want to find out how your observer self is doing. Are you observing yourself? How is that coming? I hope that you have enjoyed your busy little mind. And I just, my heart goes out to you because I know how hard this is to do, but I also know how important it is to your spiritual growth to do it. And you can see I have my little spiritual power book in my little hands. And I want to go back to talking to you about page 17, chapter 4, which talks about the third and fourth dimension and how to move into the fourth dimensional consciousness. So, get your little book out and turn to page 17, and you can follow along with me as I talk to you about, now that you have had a couple weeks with your observer self, you are ready to take on some more opportunities to move forward. So I'm going to put my little book down, and I'm going to talk to you now about the third and fourth dimension. Okay, the first thing, of course, was to learn to control the mind. Now we are going to talk about controlling the emotions. Woo, woo, woo. How do we learn to control our emotions? What is the first step in controlling your emotional status? Because you need to control your emotions in order to be emotional free. In other words, you use your emotions to express yourself, but your emotions don't use you. So there's a I guess the word I would say is you're going to transform your emotions into having them use you. You are going to be the user of your emotions rather than your emotions using you. So this is the hard part that I'm going to be talking about, because 90% of the time your emotions use you. You get all emotional about something and you make really interesting decisions, and when we make emotional decisions, they usually don't come out as well as if we've thought about our decisions and then made them from a stance of knowing that we're doing what we need to do because we've thought it through carefully. Our emotions are those kind of things that we end up getting all emotional about, and jealousy is an emotion, and hatred is an emotion, and love is an emotion, and judgment uses your emotions. Yes, emotions have a lot of strings attached to it. And if we start, since we are observing ourselves and our thoughts, we're going to start observing our emotions. Because it all goes together. If you will just follow me and go along with what I'm trying to work with you on, you're going to find out they're all going to tie together in a very nice package for you. Because you will be in charge of these emotional outbursts that you might have. Your emotional feelings about something or someone. Where does it come from? Where do these emotions start? And how on earth do we use our emotions for ourselves and be in charge of them rather than they are in charge of us? So the emotional garbage is part of the process you are going to go through by, since your thoughts are also have emotions, you know they did, and there's emotions packed in those thoughts that you had. So while you are observing your thoughts, you are also observing the emotions of those thoughts and how they make you respond either in the positive or the negative form. In my book, I have the spiritual thermometer, which I don't have up right now, but if you check spiritual power tools, there is a spiritual thermometer, and it helps you to measure your emotional status. If you are on a high 10, you are in control of your emotions, and if you are below a 5, you are out of control of your emotions. And boy, don't make any decisions when you're down below. But I put together the spiritual thermometer so that we could be able, well, I could anyway, because I was struggling so with what to do with my emotions. That helped me very much to measure where I was in the thermometer. The spiritual thermometer could tell me, oh man, I'm below a 5 and I better not make a decision right now because I'm not thinking correctly. And I would sit down and I would meditate and I would look at my emotions, and then I would let them go and say, it's not worth fighting about. It's not worth it. So gaining emotional freedom is part of the process when we move into the 4th dimension. We use our emotions in the 4th dimension, and our emotions don't use us. And oh, that's such a burden taken off of us. It's just a heavy burden that we kind of carry around, and we don't even know how it blocks our energy. It blocks our consciousness. It blocks our ability to take the right action at the right time, because we are all emotional about certain things. We don't want to do certain things because I don't want to go to a scary movie because I get too scared, my emotions go crazy, or I don't want to see any movie where there's too much love, because it makes me sad, because I don't have somebody in my life to love me. You know, all that, I'm going to say stuff. And all it is stuff. It's just stuff. And so you really need to start to observe your emotions now that you have partially conquered your thoughts. Now we're going to take in both areas now, observing your thoughts and your emotions. And journal your emotions. That helped me a lot when I would journal my emotions, because I would get down to what was really bothering me. A lot of times, the thing that I thought was bothering me wasn't bothering me at all. It was where I thought that I was upset about something, but it was something deeper. As I investigated it, I saw that it had a bigger meaning to me than just the simple fact that I was having an emotional breakdown, so to speak. So when we are trying to work with these emotions, we really, really need to own them enough to write about them, because that's the only way we can start to chip away at it. Otherwise, it just really, really gets in our way of operating, our way of thinking, our way of moving, our way of doing things. So eventually, what I want to help you to do is be detached from the emotional field. Detached. And detachment is another whole big long subject, because detachment doesn't mean that you say, pooh, I don't give a crap about this or that. I don't care. No, it's not about that type of thing. It's that you enjoy the moment you're in, but you're not attached to that moment. In other words, you're in that moment, and it's what it is in that moment. See, that doesn't mean that I have to start again and always be with that person because I love them, and when they leave me, I'm cry and cry and cry, and I'm so disappointed And the next person that I'm supposed to be visiting, I don't enjoy because I miss the person I just left. Because I had put them on a plane or I had to leave them. So once you get in charge of your emotions, you will enjoy that person you're with or the thing that you're doing. But you're not attached to it. So you don't have to do it every moment of the day, every day of your life. You can flow in it or flow out of it. So your homework this week is to look at your emotions and journal about them. And then we'll go from there. I love you, I support you, and we're going to move together forward.
So that's our homework for this week. You are taking charge of your emotions using your observer self. And your observer self is the gateway to all of the patterns of thinking and all of the attitudes that are buried in your subconscious mind. And as you do this work of your observer self, looking at your emotions this week, you'll find that you're able to get out of the drama of life. And life's got a lot of drama, but we can be the director of that play. We share our triumphs, our overcomings, as well as our difficulties and disappointments on Thursday nights at 7 p.m. Eastern. And the link's in your chat room, or you can go to the website to find it. And that's our question and answer support group, 7 Eastern. And we share with each other, and you don't have to share, you can just listen, but it's a great opportunity to be part of this wonderful spiritual community that supports your soul. Also, there's a donation link in your chat room and also on the website, so you can support this work we're doing at the Center for Enlightenment. And so this is a week in which we're really going to use every experience, each experience, to support our souls by becoming aware of our emotions and having charge over our emotions, not letting them take charge of us. So we'll see you Thursday night or next Sunday, or see you on YouTube, wherever you're watching us. Bye for now.